Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Easy EdTech Podcast. My name is Monica Burns, and I am so glad that you're here to join me today. If you want to make the most of education technology, aka EdTech, well, you are in the right place. My goal has always been to help make EdTech easier and give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. Every Tuesday here on the Easy EdTech Podcast, you'll hear stories from my time in the classroom, the work I do now with schools and districts, and my travels to different EdTech events. Get ready for solo episodes where I share some quick tips and stories, and interviews full of practical ideas and stories from new guests each month. If we mention something you'd like to check out, make sure to click the link. You'll find it in the episode description or the summary area where you're listening to this podcast, or you can find every episode and all of the resources we mention by going to classtechtips.com/podcast, or by going to classtechtips.com and just clicking on the Easy EdTech Podcast button at the top of the page. This episode is sponsored by my new ASCD deck of cards, Purposeful EdTech Tips. It's part of the Quick Wins series and packed with 50 fast, effective ideas for planning, teaching, and reflection. You'll find AI prompts, student activities, teacher tips, and strategies for checking for understanding, all designed to help you use EdTech with purpose. Whether you're planning your next unit or looking for a quick idea before class starts, these cards are full of inspiration and super easy to use. Head to classtechtips.com/cards to grab your deck today. That's classtechtips.com/cards to check it out. Hello there, and welcome to this new episode of the Easy EdTech Podcast, where we're going to look at some wild things you can do with NotebookLM. And if you have already played a bit with this tool, maybe to create audio overviews or chat with your uploaded documents, then you are already off to a great start. But there are some NotebookLM features that go way beyond the basic, Q&A of interacting with the chat that are perfect for teachers. And I think once you see what's possible, whether you spent some time in there already, maybe not recently, or maybe not at all, I have a feeling you'll start wanting to build one or two of the 5 I share with you today into your lesson prep. So, it's been a really busy start to the year. I'm recording this for you in the beginning of April. This will go live, I guess, next week. So just a little bit ahead of time. And it's been a busy start of the year. I've been on the road a little bit more. I went to San Francisco in February. In March, I was up in 2 different corners of New York State. Last week, I was in Oregon working with a group. So a lot of little quick trips and plenty of webinars and virtual stuff in between. April will be, I think, besides that last week, which I guess technically was April, the rest of April will be a virtual month for me. And my next really big trip, in terms of a conference at least, is ISTE and ASCD's annual combo conference, which I missed last year, but am so excited to have on the calendar this year. And, whether it's been an in-person event the past few weeks or a webinar, I've spotlighted some of the newer features in NotebookLM. And I thought it would be fun to highlight that on the podcast for you as well. So if you haven't used NotebookLM recently, you can access it from going to notebooklm.google.com. That's how you go straight there. Once you create a notebook by uploading maybe 3 or 4 or 5 resources, I often share examples with a Grand Canyon notebook I made with a couple YouTube videos, a link out to the National Park Service. Like, you could make it on anything, right? But if you make a notebook on something you're teaching your students, maybe you have like 4 or 5 resources you've shared every year. And this year you take those resources, just links or documents, could be a couple different things, I usually just go with links to, publicly available content like on YouTube or something when I'm sharing this with teachers. And then you create your notebook and then you do something with it. So there's a studio tab that helps you create different types of content, and every once in a while, right? So it feels like every couple of weeks or so, Google releases some new features. So even if you're out of Google School, maybe you're just playing around with NotebookLM on like a personal Gmail account, there's so much you can do. And it's just a great way to get like your mind wrapped around what's generally possible with some of the generative AI tools. So if you're totally new to NotebookLM, I'll link out to two blog posts, or one blog post and one podcast episode in the show notes. So you can jump into that and get an idea of some more than what we'll talk about today in terms of things you can do with NotebookLM. So what's important to remember for today's episode is that I'm going to share some wild things or some next level NotebookLM features. And to access these, if you play around with NotebookLM, there's a studio tab on the right-hand side of the screen where you can make an audio overview, you can make a video overview. But next to each of those, when you hover over it, there's a little arrow that lets you customize. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is using some of those studio tools and some of the new customizations for a few of them. I've got a screenshot of that in a few of my older blog posts. I'm probably going to turn this episode into a blog post later this month of April or early May with some more screenshots. So if you already are on my newsletter list, you can get on it by just going to classtechtips.com/news. I'll send it out to you also. So you'll get all of that in your inbox after listening today. So another thing to consider before we get into this list of 5 wildish things is that it can take time to generate content. So tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude have been pretty quick when you use the chatbot features now. It used to take longer for them to respond to a question or task. This will take longer to create some things for you. So you don't want to do this on the fly, like, I'm going to make this infographic right before we jump into my class period. You want to do this like the day before or in the morning, and when you got like an hour for it to work or something. I don't think it's going to take that long for most of these, but I always like to give myself oodles of time when I'm planning something. If you're planning to share some of the features I talk about today with colleagues, kind of the same thing. Create a few examples ahead of time. I do that. Like I mentioned, the Grand Canyon notebook is one I share a lot with educators. And so that way you'll have stuff that's a finished product. So if you model the workflow for your colleagues, that's just kind of my PD facilitator tip for you. So much you can do with NotebookLM. I've already spent 5 minutes kind of going through some of the big picture things I love and things to be mindful of. Let's jump right into the 5 kind of new-ish favorites I'm highlighting today. First up is audio interviews with a debate format. So the audio overview feature has been a standout in NotebookLM for a while now, and for good reason. It turns your uploaded sources into a podcast-style conversation that's pretty strong. It's a pretty interesting overview. But the debate format takes this to a whole new level. So instead of it kind of sounding like 2 humanoid voices, talking on a podcast, the debate format is a different kind of structure than like your traditional podcast. Even if you have 2 guests who have different opinions on something, debates are very different. So instead of that kind of friendly overview, the debate option creates an audio recording where 2 voices, and maybe argue is a strong word, but argue is what we call it in a debate, different sides of a topic, using your source material as a reference. So this is a really cool NotebookLM feature for teachers, not because you necessarily make a debate and just play it for students and be done, but because this could be a model of what a strong argument sounds like from both perspectives. And even if the output is not as strong or doesn't meet your expectations, you could also use it when introducing a rubric to students. And then this becomes their, opportunity to be, critical, right, of another piece of content and not like old student work or something. So you could share this with students, play it at the start of a unit, Maybe use it as a discussion starter or share it with kids who need a model before they prepare their own arguments. Middle school social studies teacher could upload primary sources about, say, westward expansion and generate a debate on its impact. Or a high school teacher could create a debate around renewable versus non-renewable energy using articles from their unit. So possibilities totally endless. So first on our list is audio interviews with a debate format. Next up are customized slide decks from your sources. So this is a fantastic feature, and NotebookLM has been able to generate slide decks for a bit now, from your uploaded sources. You get to choose between a detailed deck and a presenter deck. But what makes this so powerful is just the level of customization. You can describe the kind of slide deck you want. It'll shape the content around your request, and you can go in and edit, which wasn't available, just a month or two ago. So for example, I created a slide deck around the Grand Canyon. I've already mentioned that a few times, but instead of asking for a general overview, I focused it on a vocabulary spotlight. And the result was a set of slides built around key terms and definitions pulled from my sources, which is completely different from what you get if you asked for like a broad overview of the same topic. And the ability to steer the focus is what makes this one of the most versatile NotebookLM features for teachers. The slide generator, like I said, has been around for a bit now, but that one new addition that's pretty wild, which is why I'm putting it in this category, is the edit option. You can now go into the slides you've created and edit them directly, individually, each one. So this means you can tweak text, adjust the focus of a single slide, or even rework content without starting over. So you just want to keep in mind that this will only work on newer stuff, like newer slide decks, like one you created recently or something you might create this week. If you generated a slide deck in NotebookLM like 6 months ago, before this customize the individual or edit the individual slide was released, you won't be able to edit the individual slides on those older creations. So you might imagine that an elementary teacher has a set of like reading passages that they've written for their students, and they want to create a vocab focused desk for word workstations. Or a high school history teacher wants to generate a presenter deck for a lecture, or a presentation on the civil rights movement. They've got some primary sources they upload, and then they make a great deck. So if you love using slides in the classroom, I'm a huge fan of Google Slides. You'll want to check out my post on how to make a slide deck with Gemini. I'm going to link it out. It's going to go up like right before this episode goes live, or, I believe it'll be like right the week before. So it'll be a newer post, and it's also just something I'm super excited about. So 1 on the list were the debate audio overviews, 2 was editing those individual slides, and the 3rd one is infographics with some new style options. I've loved the infographic feature in NotebookLM since it was first released, but it's gotten even better. So you now have the opportunity to choose from different visual styles when you create an infographic. There's a sketchnote style that feels hand-drawn, super approachable, a more scientific look for data-heavy content, and even an anime-inspired option that's sure to grab your students' attention. So on top of the style choices, you can also select the orientation, the level of detail, and add any extra notes you want just to make sure it includes those things. So a science teacher could upload lab data and generate a scientific style infographic summarizing all the key findings in there. Or maybe an ELA teacher could create a sketchnote style infographic that maps out the themes of a series of short passages. So I love infographics. I did a post earlier this year. When was it? It was in March. So yeah, just last month, less than a month ago as I'm recording this for you. And still, time is all over the place, right? But for, a deeper look at that, take a look at this other blog post I did on how to make classroom infographics with AI. I focus on Gemini, some other tools for that one, but NotebookLM has come a long way. Number 4 on the list is a newer one. And if you're a table person, this one is for you. It's data tables that pull from all of your sources. I am absolutely a table person. And if you've joined me for a workshop, you've probably seen me reformat information from a list or paragraph into a table using a chatbot or, like Gemini or ChatGPT. And what makes this data table feature in NotebookLM different is it pulls data and ideas from all of your sources you've uploaded into your notebook, not just a single document. So I've got a screenshot that I'll share in that new blog post coming up where I asked for like research topics for different grade levels, which I thought was a really interesting one. So it gave me ideas around it. You might upload several articles, maybe about a topic like climate change, and ask NotebookLM to create a table comparing some data points across the sources, or upload a set of historical documents and generate a table of key dates, figures, outcomes. Of course, just like anything produced by AI, you want to make sure you use your critical expert eye to make sure everything is correct, right? Just right, factually accurate. And this is a great head start, or maybe something that was on your wish list that you just never would have done if, it was on your to-do list, right? It just would never have been on your to-do list if there's not enough time. This is like something amazing and extra that you could have only wished you had time to do. So plenty of ways to do this. I'll, put some links to some extra resources in the podcast show notes too, if this one grabs your attention. Next up are the video overviews with a new cinematic option. You might have already, tried the video overview feature, maybe to create, a brief bite-sized overview or an explainer video from one of your sources. It's a great way to give kids a quick visual summary of a topic, but there's a new option. So just like the infographic has like anime and sketchnote to choose from, there's a new option called cinematic, where it creates a more polished, like a very narrative-driven video, feels less like a summary, more like a mini doc or something. So not like an explainer video, just much more visual. Great for hooking students at the start of a lesson, or even just giving them like a visually rich intro to a new topic. A geography teacher could upload sources about ocean ecosystems and, generate, a cinematic video to kick off a marine biology unit. I did one with a notebook I have all about the water cycle, and it created this quick, beautiful video for me. So lots of options. So these 5 kind of wild things to do with NotebookLM represent just how much it's grown in a pretty short period of time. So whether you're creating a debate like that audio overview to model argumentation, building a vocab-focused slide deck, maybe designing a sketchnote style infographic, organizing data in tables, or producing a kind of cinematic video overview, definitely something for everyone. So I mentioned my newsletter earlier. If you get my newsletter or, one of my emails, reply to it. Let me know if there's a NotebookLM feature you're using or you're excited about. You can always go to classtechtips.com/news or /newsletter. Both will take you there. And then you can sign up for it there. So let's make this EdTech easy with some key points from the episode. Oh, and important to mention, my newsletter is totally free, of course. So let's get into that list of key points. Use NotebookLM's audio and video features to model concepts, spark discussion, and introduce new topics. Generate customized slide decks to streamline lesson prep and focus on specific learning goals. Create infographics in different styles to make complex ideas more visual and engaging. Organize information with data and tables to compare sources and highlight key patterns. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from today's episode by heading over to easyedtechpodcast.com and finding today's episode. This one is number 366. This episode is sponsored by my new ASCD deck of cards, Purposeful EdTech Tips. It's part of the Quick Wins series and packed with 50 fast, effective ideas for planning, teaching, and reflection. You'll find AI prompts, student activities, teacher tips, and strategies for checking for understanding, all designed to help you use EdTech with purpose. Whether you're planning your next unit or looking for a quick idea before class starts, these cards are full of inspiration and super easy to use. Head to classtechtips.com/cards to grab your deck today. That's classtechtips.com/cards to check it out. Thank you for listening to this new episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. I love creating new episodes for you each week, but I could use a bit of help spreading the word about the podcast. Can you leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app? Spotify will let you tap on the stars, and Apple Podcasts will let you tap on the stars and leave a 1 or 2 sentence review. Thank you so much for taking this extra step. It helps other educators find episodes like this one when they're searching for EdTech tips.